Alright, what is up, Syndicate viewers? I'm down here at a skate park today. You can hear a siren in the back. This is just... Yeah, I shouldn't comment on the area we're in, should I? What is up, Syndicate viewers? My name's Levi. I'm down here at a skate park today, and I'm going to be teaching you how to tail whip into 50-50 grinds. So this is a trick that I've been doing for a pretty long time now, and over the years more and more people in sport have started to really progress in this trick, and I'm really stoked to see how many people have just gotten super good at it. So yeah, this park's actually really ideal to do this trick because we've got a perfect bank to A-frame rail, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. But I think like when you're doing this trick, you really want to think about the obstacle you're learning it on, because some things are going to be so much harder to do this trick on as opposed to other things. And I think like starting low, working your way up is generally the technique you'd want to apply. But I'll get into some better techniques when we go over to the A-frame rail, and yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so it's really important when you're doing this trick to just really get good at tail whipping first. You want to be able to catch this trick really high in the air, maybe practice whipping up some block sets, and you want to have them really fast. So it's all about catching the tail whip as fast as you can. Some people, when they do tail whips, they do them a little slower. So if you're one of those people, just try to get it as quick as you possibly can, because the idea of it is catching the whip above the 50 really high. So that gives you more time to land in the 50 and spot what you're doing. So yeah, tail whips are definitely a must for this trick. Alright guys, so we're going to start off by getting into doing a whip to front 50. Some people would consider this the easier trick to learn. I personally always found whip back 50s a little bit easier, but I am going to teach the whip front 50 first and show you guys how to approach this trick and how to spot it and land in it as consistently as you can. So when you're starting to approach a tail whip to front 50, I like to go on a little bit of an angle for this trick. So some people, when they just do regular 50s, they go really straight. And when I do regular 50s, I do the same. But when you're doing a whip front 50, if you go on just a little bit of an angle into the grind, it's just going to help you get that whip a little bit more over the rail, and then it gives you a bit more time to push it back in. Alright guys, so when you're entering into the whip front 50, there's a few really important things that you want to think about. So the first thing is doing the biggest jump that you can, and this is going to give you the biggest amount of clearance above the rail. The next thing, as I mentioned before, you want to whip as fast as you can and catch it as early as you can. So with that combined height and spin of your scooter, that's going to give you heaps of space to spot the 50. Now after I've caught my tail whip, when I'm doing a whip 50, I like to look straight down at the rail and aim to slowly glide into the 50. So you don't want to be really rushed and just slam it in. You want to slowly glide in, and as you get close, you snap that scooter into the rail. You want to try to line your back wheel and your front wheel up as well. So it's really easy to actually miss this trick, especially if you don't get enough clearance. So the biggest tip for me to give you guys would be to get a lot of clearance, as I mentioned. Some people, when they do this trick, they're catching the whip really low to the rail, like this. And you can do them that way, but unfortunately what that's going to do is it's going to give you a much higher chance of missing the rail or making a mistake. So basically, the higher you get, the more room you've got for error, pretty much. So with all of that said, once you've caught the trick, put your front foot on, put the scooter into the rail, it's just going to be like a regular front 50. You might be going a little bit faster, or you might be hitting the rail a little bit harder than a regular 50, but it's all going to feel the same once you're locked into that trick. Dismount's going to be exactly the same. So yeah, pretty much once you've got the whip in, the rest is history. So just a quick side note, obviously committing to this trick with 2 feet without having any sort of practice at this trick is really scary, because there's a high risk you're going to hit your shins on this trick if you miss. So a good way to start off with doing this trick is to just catch it with 1 foot, have your other foot off to the side and just try to put one in, and then your other foot can land sort of on the ground. So that's just going to help you build confidence, and only do this on a really low rail as well. So that's just going to help you get an idea or a feeling for the trick at least. Just another quick side note guys, when you're doing this trick, sometimes it's easier to practice them on a bank to flat rail or a bank to A-frame rail like this one. The reason being is that bank's going to just shoot you a bit higher than if you were to jump on flat ground. So I definitely find this trick a lot easier on a bank to rail. And if you're landing on like a down rail, like an A-frame like this one, because the rail's declining, it's actually going to give you more clearance above the rail, making it easier to spot it and lock it in. Alright guys, so now that we're finished up with doing whip front 50s, we're going to talk about whip back 50s. Now some people consider this trick to be a little bit harder, as I mentioned before, but this is actually the first whip to 50 combo that I learned myself, just because I was always better naturally at doing backside 50s. Now there's two different ways of doing this trick when you're approaching it. The first one is going to be coming quite close to the rail, and you're going to be whipping before the rail. Now that's a way that a lot of people like to learn them. And what it means is that when you're doing a tail whip, there's no chance of your scooter hitting the rail, okay? So the difference between a whip front 50 and a whip back 50 is that with a whip back 50, you're actually having to whip into the rail. So jumping a little bit earlier just avoids the chance of your scooter hitting the rail, which can make it a little bit safer, but you also have to gap in a little bit for that. Now, as for approaching the trick, you want to go on the same similar sort of angle to as I showed you on the front 50. So you want to go just like slightly off center like this, just so you have a little bit of a chance to catch it and correct it back into being straight. So if you guys were to start the trick jumping before the rail, as I mentioned, it's going to be a little bit easier. But yeah, I usually would do them by gapping in. So you usually have to start a lot further away from the rail, meaning that your whip is not going to clip on the rail. Now that can be a little bit scarier because you've really got to gap in, so you can't be close to the rail at all, which makes it a little bit hard to commit to. The other thing with this trick is you can't really do practice attempts where you're landing with one foot because you really have to get over the top of the rail. Now, as I mentioned before in the whip front 50, you want to catch your whip really high. Same goes for the whip back 50. You want to jump as high as you can away from the rail and catch. And as you catch the tail whip, you want to merge your body weight towards the rail, and because the whip is actually going the same direction, or it's going in the direction of the rail, it's going to snap into that 50 a lot easier. You don't have to push it in yourself, you just catch it, straighten it up, and it should happen pretty naturally. Once again, the higher you catch this trick above the rail, the easier it's going to make it. So yeah, that's pretty much how to do the whip back 50. For the dismount, as soon as you're in it, it's just going to feel like a regular back 50. Just ride it out and then roll off the side of the rail. Alright guys, so as I mentioned before, you can either jump before the rail to make the clearance, or you can jump after the rail and gap in a lot further. I'm going to show you both examples so you can see what I mean through the lens of Dylan's camera. Alright guys, so to sum things up, just always remember to whip as high as you can, go on a little bit of an angle, get as much clearance as you can, which gives you time to spot the trick. As I mentioned, with both of these tricks, whip back 50 and whip front 50, I'm always looking straight down and gliding into that rail slowly. So you want to give yourself as much time as you can to slowly glide into the rail after you've caught the whip. Just makes it so much easier. And that concludes the tutorial for today, so thanks for watching. Subscribe to Syndicate Store on YouTube, shop at Syndicate Store if you're in Australia and want scooter parts, or overseas. I believe they do overseas shipping as well. Support Rider Owned. Thanks for watching. See you next time.